What's up, guys? This is the Ultimate Wild Player's Guide for Hearthstone's newest expansion, Escape from Violet Hold. And here I'm going to tell you all the cards that you should craft, and I have over 10 wild Theorycraft decks for you to try out on day one. Let's start with the safe crafts. For the dust-conscious players out there, if you guys still want to play stuff on day one, these are cards that I am pretty confident are going to be good and playable in wild. Let's start with Dark Bribe. I think you're going to see the best deck in the format right now, Quest Token Demon Hunter, incorporate at least one, maybe two of these into their decks, just because 2 mana versus 3 is a big difference compared to Paraglide and Sigil of Time. Then you have Contraband Wands. So the Sorc Apprentice Quest Mage, not a top tier deck, but Contraband Wands, great card in that deck and will make it better. Then you have the Skeleton Keys. This is a great card in the Quest Hostage Mage decks, the Thaddeus combos. A good 1 mana Discover card, already playable, and this has upside of letting you find the perfect card that you need for the situation. Then we've got Lethal Recipe. So combo druid decks like Dungar or Kael'thas love Lethal Recipe. Basically any combo druid player that's not playing Psych Melon is going to love having Lethal Recipe in their deck. Then you have Commander Beatrix. So this is a super interesting, powerful card. I think it's mainly going to see play in Call to Arms decks, but it has potential to see play in a lot of other places. It's to be determined how to best abuse this card, but it's a cool one that I would be very, very surprised if it doesn't see play. And then last but not least, we have the combination of Unseen Atlas and Godfrey the Betrayer. These are just a solid core for Warlock Shells in Wild. It's going to see play in a variety of decks, from Borlock to Reno to Demon Seed to Evenlock to, I don't know, maybe just OG Handlock comes back. Next up, we have the Fringe playable card. These are cards that I think are on the fringe of being playable. I'm not like 100% confident that they're going to make the best 30 or 40 for their specific deck. So let's start with Unshackle Soul. This is the real big payoff for Thief Priest that got printed in this set. This is a good card if you can get it consistently online. And so I'm imagining 2 copies of this, the legendary from this set, and 2 copies of Mysterious Visitor is going to be a strong core that you can build a Thief Priest around. I'm not sure if the deck is going to be good, but if a Thief Priest is like tier 3 playable in Wild, I think the devs have finally done a good job with that archetype. Then we have Irida Sinseeker. So this is a unique effect that needs to be figured out how to, really abuse and break. I think it's going to start off just as being played in Pirate Demon Hunter as a way to just draw 2 cards a turn in that deck. Maybe you shove in Arana so that you could kind of abuse Arana plus the glaive once you're in fatigue. I'm not sure if that's really going to be worth playing kind of a brick in Arana. We'll see. But yeah, worst case scenario, you shove it in Pirate Demon Hunter for more card draw for the aggro deck, but maybe eventually we're going to get some ways to really break it. Aya Lotus Kingpin. So the going second effect, just baseline, you ignore the battle cry, is going to be great for Sevens Rogue or Miracle Rogue style decks because the win rate of going second is a lot higher already. Just treat it like a Patches, treat it like Dark Bishop Benedictus, you play it just for the start of game effect. Then we have Warp Tooth. I think this is a cool card that's super easy to turn on Wild. We've got stuff like Risky Skipper or Jam Session or Searing Fissure, so a lot of cheap ways to summon the Warp Tooth out of the deck. I don't know that it itself is powerful enough to bring back something like Pirate Warrior or Menagerie Warrior, but you can bet that I'm going to try. Speaking of Warrior, we've got Crowd Control. This is just a solid AoE option for any of your 40 card Warrior decks in Wild. Most of you are going to be Reno, so you are going to be interested in something like Crowd Control. Speaking of Reno, we've got Drink Blood. This is just a solid 2 mana removal spell in Reno Death Knight. I know Reno Death Knight is pretty far away from being a meta menace, but Drink Blood is just a solid card in that deck. Even better once you have Blood Doctor Thelena, or the Headless Horseman hero card into play as a way to abuse those hero powers. Then you've got a combination of Widow's Bite, Secret Ingredient, and Spider Rider. So these are interesting upgrades for a deck that just isn't really good right now in Questline Druid. It's hard to tell if it's ever going to come back without Rake going back to 1 mana, but these are upgrades to the deck nonetheless. Then we have Reinforcement Aura and Scarlet Recruiter. So these are options for specifically like a 40 card Call to Arms Paladin deck, as just more ways for the deck to consistently flood the board, especially if you're playing Beatrix, so that you have the density of 2 drops. Then we've got a couple of Hunter cards here. We've got King of the Underbelly and Underbelly Network. So King of the Underbelly, I think this card's just good. I think it's going to slot into Reno decks, no problem. If Beast Hunter ever comes back, it's going to be strong in there. I don't think it drastically changes Reno Hunters power level, but I don't really know that there's a good combo line yet. At least I haven't found one, and nobody's told me of one. So I think it's just going into Reno Hunter for now. We'll talk about some options for what goes in your contraband once I get to the deck list section. Underbelly Network, same comments for the King, really, where this is just going to be a solid role player card that I don't think is going to shift the needle, but I think it just raises your floor slightly. 2 card draws for 2 mana, 2 loot hoarders. You can potentially do stuff with the death rattles. I think it's just a good card, even if it's not super flashy. And then we've got Rat Burglar. This is a unique tech card. I know WoW players love their tech cards. You can do some stuff with Research Project, or Naturalize, or Togwaggle, or Glide. Got a couple of options. I'm sure I'm going to lose to this on ladder, and I'm going to tilt, but I'm sure a lot of you are also going to have a lot of fun playing it. Alright, so next up we've got the For Fun crafts. These are for you guys that have got dust to spare, that want to experiment with some off-the-wall, not very good decks right now in the format. We're going to start with Ball and Chain. So a damaged Tempo Warrior or something doesn't really exist in current Wild, but I wanted to note that this card exists because I think it's a card that just pumps out a lot of stats for a super low amount of mana. I just want to keep my eye on this card as a strong one without a real home right now. This is a card that if you open them, don't dust them. I think it's going to have a lot of potentially in the future. Speaking of Warrior, we have Chainbreaker Hogger. Value Pile Enjoyers Rejoice. I'm excited to see how big some of my opponents can get their deck and still win the game. I also think that this might be a real thing with double Patches and double Warp Tooth and maybe double Zilliax. You could do some cute things in like more aggressive Warrior decks. But I already know that I'm going to queue into a Reno deck that's got like 80 cards in it. I'm going to lose, and it's going to be really, really funny and also really sad at the same time. Speaking of Reno, we've got Blood Dr. Thelina. This is a Reno Death Knight card to me in this format. It's finally a playable way to abuse corpses for specifically Reno Death Knight, because we just don't really have playable corpse users. And the introduction of this card makes me more interested in stuff like Cinematic, Necrotic Explosion, or whatever the 10 mana rainbow spell is, because you can use 3 corpses super easily every turn once you get this down. Another Death Knight card I want to talk about is Disguised Doctor. This is a really crazy stat line, 1 mana 5/1. If we ever really get an aggro Death Knight, maybe this goes in that deck. Maybe you can combo it with Death Growl for 2 mana, where you play this on your opponent's side of the board, you play this, and then you clear the board, and you shuffle 12 of these blights into their deck, which is kind of interesting for a very little amount of mana. I don't know. But the stat line and the effect is definitely something to, it perked my interest. Another Disguise card is Disguised Detective for Shaman. Aggro Overload Shaman coming back. Maybe the quest is involved. Who knows? I don't know that you're really going to ever use this as a tech card, but that's a lot of stats for 1 mana. I do want to just make sure that I'm noting Smuggled Shovel. I just think the shovel has extreme long-term potential. You don't really have payoffs right now for it other than Arcane Tripwire. That's, I think, the best inclusion in the format for now. Maybe there's some of the arcane synergies that we have in the past that we can abuse in addition to Tripwire and the shovel. If that package ends up being strong, maybe it's good enough to be put into some non-Reno Hunter decks. We've got Scramble for Gear. This is a card that I think has some potential combo options. It might also just be good enough as a standalone card. Maybe not really for Reno decks, but if you're playing just a regular Odin Warrior, I wonder if this card is good enough. It doesn't read like super powerful and consistent, and so that's why it's in the For Fun crafts rather than the previous category. And then last but not least, I want to talk about Caged Cranium. I think a 3 mana 3/8 or 3/9 taunt is good enough in Wild. I'm not sure if it's going to be something alongside Forge of Souls to push normal handlock rather than just even lock, but this card does, as the Warlock player, does get the gears turning a little bit for me. So those were all the cards that I think are playable in Wild from the newest set, Escape from Violet Hold. With that being said, I did throw together 13 Theorycrafts. These are updates to current decks, plus a couple of new ideas that I threw down. You can find the link to these deck codes down in the description of the video. And I want to make sure that this is out there if you guys are watching this after the set has released. These are Theorycrafts. These are decks that I'm going to be playing day 1 of the set. If you guys are interested in updated lists or finalized lists and things like that, once the expansion is dropped, make sure you guys check the Discord. I'll be posting updated lists over there. You guys can find the link to that also down in the description of this video. Okay, so we have to start off with a couple of the known meta decks right now. So we're going to start with Token Broxigard Demon Hunter. Essentially what I've done is I'm going to just try out one copy of the new card Dark Bribe and then see how it feels. This is basically a 1 mana cheaper version of Paraglider Sigil that will proc the quest at the expense of giving your opponent a card, but if you give them something like Animated Broomstick or Fierce Outsider or something that it doesn't really do anything for them, you get the upside. I want to see how it plays before I move up to 2. I would play the second Dark Bribe over something like Paraglide or Sigil of Time. But yeah, this is like the best deck in the format. It's getting a potential new tool here, so I had to make sure that I threw out a list out there for you guys. Alright, then we have Sork Apprentice Mage. So there had been a little bit of innovation from Copper. Copper is kind of the only real guy that's out there playing it. That was doing Spinley plus Evocation. It's pretty inconsistent for me. I also am not like super excited to be playing Finley. It's just like another minion that messes with your Xavius tutoring. So I actually took those 2 cards out for the new card Contraband Wands. This is a cheap spell that you get down for, during your setup alongside like your Mana Biscuit or your card draw. And then once you have the apprentices down, all your missiles cost 1 mana. They're going to trigger and get your quest done super quickly. They get your Arcane Giants down super quickly. So, and super powerful with Flamewaker. So yeah, I think it's a really, really great inclusion in Quest Mage. Again, Quest Mage is not a top tier deck, but definitely gets better with Contraband Wands. I do not know if Finley Evocation is the best replacements for that. I was thinking about Hot Streak, but I also really like the Hot Streak while you're comboing off with stuff like Burn Down and Smoldering Grove because they don't go to 0. So yeah, this is my day 1 build for Quest Mage. And then we have the Thaddeus ETC Hostage Combo Mage. It's a lot of words. The main inclusion here is we just took out what I think was the most awkward, difficult to use card, which was Potion of Illusion. Not a necessary card for the combo. And it's a little bit clunky at 4 mana, and so I just took that out to replace it with the Skeleton Key. I think it's just a solid card in this deck. Yeah, not much else to say here. The Hostage Mage shell has been kind of solved. It is still obnoxious to play against, and I think the Skeleton Key is just a solid card in that deck. I'm a little bit sad of the interaction that they removed where you could get down the 6/6 Spellweaver's Brilliance and or Molten Giants, but I digress. Okay, so then we've got Call to Arms Paladin. So this is just a normal 30 card Call to Arms Paladin deck that I've managed to fit in both new cards of Reinforcement Aura and Scarlet Recruiter. So Scarlet Recruiter is the 5 mana summon 2 drops from your deck. Card's been impressive. Then we've got Beatrix. The Beatrix is going to be running your Crab Riders. 10 Crab Riders with Crusader Auras and Flight Maneuvers seems really, really powerful. I'm not sure. So right now I'm on the... So I've been doing a little bit of the pre-release event, and it's a little bit weird where you can't put 10 in cards into your Beatrix and then also 1 in your deck. I'm not sure if that's a bug. If that's not a bug and you're only allowed to run the 10 Crab Riders, then we're going to have to, cut the 1 that's in the main deck, maybe for a second Trinket Artist or a second Flight Maneuvers. But yeah, I think Call to Arms Paladin, again, just a solid upgrades for the deck. Not super flashy. I know people don't love Call to Arms Paladin, but I do think it's getting better and better. I'm not running Prismatic Beams, which is a little bit weird in Call to Arms Paladin, but if we're playing 10 Crab Riders in the Beatrix, I feel like I don't necessarily need the comeback mechanism of the Prismatic Beam. So that's my logic and my reasoning. Not sure if it's correct, but it's the reason that you don't see them in the deck. And then we've got 40 card Questline Druid. So this deck is going to be a little bit slower because I am still playing the Groovy Cats and the Protoss package. So we do have some pretty nutty late game. It just means that you're not going to be putting the quest reward down on turn 5 or turn 6 every game. But we've got a lot of inevitability with Arcane Giants, Crypt Keepers, Owls as free minions, Artanis' insane late game burst, and you've got a decent amount of card draw now. So in addition to Spread the Word, Press the Advantage is one that kind of flew under the radar, but that plus the new card Spider Rider, pretty solid card, pretty solid cards. I'm excited to mess around with Questline Druid, even though I do not think it's going to be that good of a deck. As long as this card remains 2 mana, it can't really be what it used to be, but I don't know if this will ever go back to 1 mana, so we'll see. Okay, so I wanted to circle back around to the Call to Arms Paladin deck. It's just another idea that I've been toying around with, just couldn't really bring myself to build it, which is just Mech Paladin playing Beatrix, and the Beatrix is just containing 10 copies of Galvanizer, the 2-mana 1/2 that discounts all your mechs. It's just going to be your normal Mech Paladin deck if you find one. I've got one in my Discord that's a couple months old. But you take that list and you just add 10 Galvanizers to it, it's going to be super consistent flooding the board. Again, I don't know if that's going to bring Mech Paladin back, but it is going to be very, very good at flooding the board consistently with cheap mechs. The radar detector into like double galvanizer, 3 galvanizers, flood the board on turn 3. Die to a defile or a or a domino effect or a table flip, but just don't queue in a warlock then if you're playing Mech Paladin, you'd be fine. Then we've got Even Warlock. Love me some Even Warlock. The big additions here are the Unseen Atlas and Godfrey the Betrayer. Lets you tap willy-nilly, doesn't matter. Because your overdrawing doesn't matter, the Pack Mules are kind of back in here as a way to kind of guarantee that you're getting the Mountain Giants on 3, the Netherons and the Gnolls on turn 3 very consistently. Okay, and so then we're also playing a little bit of a demon package here with Infernals, Dark Alley packs, and End Games. At the time of recording, Cult Neophyte's bug. Surely that'll be fixed by the time the set releases. And then we've got plenty of AoE, so you see no Defile in here, but we've got Wing Welding, Discarding Giants so that you can clear a big Quest Demon Hunter board. And then we've also got Table Flip because we're doing the whole big hand size thing, you know. But yeah, this is one of the decks that I'm the most excited for. Classic deck coming back. Excited to mess around with it. In the ETC, there is currently a Curse of Rafam missing. I don't know why this deck tracker doesn't like that card, or this deck builder website. And so if you guys copy this list over and you're missing a card in the ETC, that's the one that I've got, just because at least in Legend, people like playing Hostage Mage. If you don't see a lot of Hostage Mage, feel free to mess around with whatever other tech card or ETC card that you want to put in there. All right, next up, we've got 2 different types of Rogue decks. We've got the Miracle Rogue and the Sevens Rogue. These are pretty straightforward decks that are just including Aya, and they're building a little bit around the Aya with the cards that we're including. Like I mentioned during the actual card parts at the beginning of the video, these decks just do better when they go second, so that when they see the extra card and they have the coin to do either the Trickster things or the earlier pop-offs with your Stenographers and Arcane Giants and the card draw and the regular Miracle Rogue, these are decks that just love going second. And so you're playing these as Aya as a patches. The dead draw, you're not doing anything with her Battle Cry and the coins, but if you go second, your deck's going to pop off more consistently. When these decks pop off more consistently, they're more powerful. Okay, then we've got the first of a couple of warrior decks here. And so the first one's going to be a Pirate Menagerie Warriors. So this deck is being revisited specifically because of Warp Tooth, the 4-mana 3/3 charge. If you take, if your friendly minions, 3 of them take damage, you summon this from your hand or deck. So we're actually, okay, this is going to be crazy and it's probably not correct, but we've got Chainbreaker Hogger. I can't really, here you go. Duplicate all legendaries. So that means that in your Pirate Warrior and you play a pirate on turn 1, you're going to summon 2 patches. Whenever you do your pop-off, you're going to summon 2 Warp Tooths. Is that good? I don't know. Okay? This is also the justification for the second deck that I've got for you guys, where we've got just a regular Pirate Warrior doing the same thing with Hogger, Warp Tooth, Ankar, and the patches, obviously. So the difference between these 2 decks, so the Pirate Warrior, the Pirate Menagerie Warrior, your main card draw engine is going to be Roaring Applause. The main way that we're triggering the Warp Tooth out of the deck is we've got Searing Fissure, Jam Session, and Risky Skipper. When you're summoning double patches out of your deck, you got a Demon and a Pirate, and so that'll hopefully be making your 10th Thrasher come down even cheaper, more consistently, because normally they only count one of the types from patches. So if you play a mistake on turn 1, then your 10th Thrasher is going to cost 2. Yeah. So again, is the Hogger good? I don't know, but definitely something I'm going to try out. The Pirate Warrior is going to be, I think, a little bit better at getting the Warp Tooth out, though, because you play the buffs. So you have the Roughhouser and the Captain, which means that stuff like your patches, your N'Zoth's First Mate, are going to survive the Jam Session or the Searing Fissure, which means that your Warp Tooth is going to come out and you're still going to have your board presence. There's also a slight difference here where we're going to be using Battle Rage as the card draw engine in Pirate Warrior, just because if our minions are going to be surviving the Searing Fissure in the jam session more often, then I think Battle Rage is just going to be a better card draw engine than something like Roaring Applause in just the pure Pirates build. So yeah, those are two aggressive takes on Warrior. I couldn't bring myself to put together a Hogger Reno deck. If that's something that you're interested in, put in the good cards, and then put in your favorite cards, and then put in all the starter game effects that add more cards to your deck. Boom, easy peasy. Okay, so this Shadow Priest deck. This is the deck that's built around the new Azalina. So the one that you build a 20 card deck and 20 get added from your enemy's deck. So, okay, ignore all these 10 drops. I couldn't output a 20 card deck. Okay, so all of these are just random 10 drops that get me to the 30 card limit. Everything Azalina and above are going to be the 20 cards that you add to your deck. Okay, so the reason that this deck is interesting is you have Azalina Soul Sever. That means you're going to have 1 mana kill a thing with Unshackle Soul. And then your big payoff card, so the card that you're looking for in your mulligan, is Mysterious Visitor. So this is a 2 mana card that is going to discount 6, 9, 12 mana worth of cards from your opponent's deck. Big dubs. That's going to be your main upside. So that plus Harvester of Envy, you can steal cards out of your opponent's deck. That's going to be your win con against like slower or combo decks. And then in order to not just get run over by aggro decks, we are just playing the strong cards out of the aggro Shadow Priest. So we're using the Benedictus Synergy alongside Spirit plus Papercraft Angel. And then we've got the small Pirate package here plus the Minesweeper to help against aggro. And this is a deck that I don't think I've ever said these words out loud, but this synergy makes me actually kind of interested in playing a Thief Priest, which is maybe for the first time ever. Next up, we've got the cursed title here of XLBFUHLLC Quest Death Knight. Basically, this is 40 card Rainbow Reno Death Knight that plays the quest, Reanimate the Tear. The main reason that we play the quest is because the big new card is Blood Doctor Thelena. I am excited in a way to spend corpses consistently in a Reno Death Knight deck. I found myself, because of what you naturally have to play in Reno Death Knight, you're playing a lot of just dirtily 2 mana creatures, you've got like mining casualties, you've got your hero power, you're just going to be generating, I find myself generating just a fair amount of corpses just in general. And so just turning those corpses that you get from playing a tempo Reno Curvestone style deck into some value with Thelena's hero power is pretty interesting to me. And then because now we have this consistent way to spend corpses, I'm more excited in something like Climatic Necrotic Explosion. This is going to be your big way to end the game. And when you just get to spend 3 corpses a turn, this is going to get turbocharged super consistently and is something that I'm interested in. The rest of it is just, I'm sorry for all of the legends and the dust cost, but the only real playable, interesting cards that impact the board in Wild for Death Knight happen to be legendaries. And so this is not a deck for the faint of heart, okay? If you guys don't ask me for replacements, because Death Knight doesn't have very many good cards, so the good ones you kind of just have to play. All right, and last but not least, we have XL Highlander Hunter. So this is just 40 card Hunter. The big inclusion here is specifically the King of the Underbelly and the new location. So nothing super flashy here. I think just the Underbelly network, like I mentioned before at the beginning of the video, I think is just a really, really good, solid card. Okay, and then we have King of the Underbelly. So the Play Hearthstone website deck builder that I used to make these decks doesn't really have the functionality built in yet, but the 3 beasts that I'm currently the most interested in playing in King of the Underbelly, we've got Brilliant Macaw from Shaman, 0 mana 3/3 that repeats the King of the Underbelly. So basically you're playing a 6 mana 9/8 across 2 bodies that gets the additional text from King of the Underbelly. If you're playing against a control deck, you can get Spirit of the Badlands from Paladin, the one that gives you the Mirage for extra value. And then if you're playing against combos, so this is a crazy card that I really didn't know existed until I looked through my deck tracker, and that's 8 Hands from Beyond. So this is going to be an 8 mana 8/8 beast. It'll be 5 mana off of the King of the Underbelly. That says Battlecry, destroy both players' decks except for the 8 highest cost cards in each. So our eight highest cost cards are all super impactful cards. Whereas if you're playing against something like a Borlock that, you know, lets you get to turn 6 or 7, or you're playing against a Druid deck or something like that, this could potentially muck with the combo. I don't know how consistent it is. It's just something I definitely wanted to try out. And it's the slot that's definitely in the most flux. So let me know if you guys have better ideas on what beast that you guys want to play in your King of the Underbelly contraband. So remember, no other hunter minions and no neutrals, which makes things a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, those are all the cards that I think are going to be playable in Wild from the new set, and at least 13 decks to play on day one from a variety of classes and archetypes using new cards from the set. Again, if you guys want refined deck lists, make sure you guys join that Discord. Once the set releases, I'll be posting lists that I played over in there. I'll be streaming, posting YouTube videos, all that kind of good stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed the guide for Wild players for the new set, Escape from Violet Hold. Appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys next time.